Hi there, strikers. There's something uniquely disturbing about people vanishing into thin air. Read about these incredibly strange, unsolved cases. Although these disappearances span centuries, locations, age ranges, and circumstances, there's one common thread shared between them: a lack of closure. There are theories, speculations, and investigations, but never a decisive answer. On our incoming episode, I'm going to feature some of the cases of mysterious disappearances, of some missing that just disappear without any trace. The disappearance of Brianna Maitland. She was born in Burlington, Vermont on October 8, 1986 to her parents, Bruce and Kelly Maitland. The youngest of two children, she grew up on a farm in East Franklin, Vermont, not too far from the Canadian border. Known affectionately as Bri and B, Brianna was a well-liked and well-rounded young woman who was a joy to be around. Her spontaneity and overall happiness resulted in her gravitating to everyone around her, and she is described as having been very trusting of others. In terms of her favorite activities, she was known to be an avid reader and had trained several years in jiu-jitsu. In October 2003, on her 17th birthday, Brianna decided she wanted to leave the family farm and be closer to her friends, who lived 15 miles away and attended a different high school to her. Wanting more independence and to experience life away from her rural surroundings, she enrolled in her friend's high school and ventured out on her own. Her living arrangements were not stable at this time, as she bounced between friends' homes, and while her parents were not happy with her moving out, they decided to tolerate the situation. By February 2004, Brianna had dropped out of school, but was still determined to complete her education and enrolled herself in a JD program. At the time, she had found stable living arrangements with her childhood friend, Jillian Stout, in Sheldon, Vermont. The town is approximately 20 miles west of Montgomery, Vermont, where she would last be seen. Approximately 3 weeks before her disappearance, Brianna was reportedly attacked by a female acquaintance whilst at a party. While the reason for the assault is unclear, Bruce believes it may have been the result of jealousy, caused by Brianna interacting with a male individual. According to witnesses, she hadn't tried to defend herself, and when she went to the hospital she received treatment for 2 black eyes, facial cuts, a concussion and a broken nose. She'd filed a criminal complaint that was still pending at the time of her disappearance, but it would be dropped by the district attorney 3 weeks after she went missing, against her parents' objections. As the investigation into her disappearance would continue, investigators would state the woman who attacked Brianna had been cleared of any involvement and had nothing to do with her going missing. On the morning of March 19, 2004, Brianna took and passed her JD examination, meaning she could move forward with her plans to attend college part-time. To celebrate the accomplishment, she and her mother had lunch together and spent the afternoon shopping. According to Kelly, Brianna had been in good spirits and the two had spent a lot of time discussing her college plans. However, she did notice a shift in her mood while the pair were waiting to check out at a store, when something caught her daughter's attention. Brianna had went outside, and when Kelly went to meet her in the parking lot, she seemed noticeably shaken. Not wanting to pry, Kelly didn't ask what was bothering her. Kelly dropped Brianna back at her residence between 3:30 p.m. and 4 p.m., as she had to work that evening. Before leaving for her shift as a dishwasher at the Black Lantern Inn in Montgomery, Brianna left Jillian a note to say she'd be home that evening after work. According to Brianna's coworkers, the shift went by uneventfully. Brianna hadn't received or made any calls, and she did not have any visitors. After they had closed up, they remember asking Brianna if she'd like to have dinner with them, but she declined, saying she was tired and had to work the next morning at her second job at KJ's Diner in St. Albans, Vermont, where she was a waitress. At 11:20 p.m. on March 19, 2004, Brianna left the Black Lantern Inn, with her coworkers recalling her getting into her car and leaving the parking lot. That weekend, Jillian had been away visiting family, so didn't see Brianna's note until she returned home that Monday. When she didn't find Brianna in the residence, she assumed she'd simply moved back in with her parents and brother in East Franklin. On March 20, 2004, a state trooper was dispatched to an abandoned barn in Richford, Vermont, known as the Old Dutchburn House. The house is about a mile west of Montgomery, just off East Berkshire Road and Vermont Route 118, across from Dutchburn Farm Road. When he arrived, he found a pale green four-door 1985 Oldsmobile Delta sedan backed into the barn, causing minor damage to the rear bumper. The vehicle had made a hole in the barn wall, causing a piece of plywood that had been covering one of the windows to land on its trunk. There were no indications that the car had come off the road in an uncontrolled way. A closer examination would show the rear wheels had been raised, causing the car to become disabled, and the car itself would be unlocked, despite the keys being missing. Inside were two uncashed paychecks totaling $150 on the front seat, and a variety of other personal effects were found outside in front of the car, including some loose change, a water bottle and an unsmoked cigarette. Assuming the Oldsmobile had simply been abandoned by a suspected drunk driver, the trooper arranged for it to be towed to a local garage. A check of the vehicle's registration showed it belonged to Kelly Maitland, but the state troopers did not notify her of it being impounded, as the paychecks indicated that Brianna had been the primary driver. Hoping to inform her that it had been found, they went to the Black Lantern Inn, but it was closed. Later, investigators would come to believe that the accident involving the car and the Old Dutchburn house had been staged. This information coming from a 2007 flyer distributed by the FBI. As Brianna was not scheduled to return to work on March 21, 2004, her coworkers were not aware that she had gone missing. On March 23, 2004, Jillian telephoned Brianna's parents and found out that she hadn't actually returned home to East Franklin. Kelly became concerned upon learning that her daughter hadn't been seen in a few days and thus began to call her friends and employers. Unfortunately, no one had been in contact with her since the last night she'd worked. As her concern grew, Kelly reported her daughter as missing, and it was at this time that the Oldsmobile became connected to the case. On March 25, 2004, Bruce and Kelly gave photos of Brianna to the Vermont State Police. However, they initially were skeptical that foul play was involved, given there were no signs of a violent confrontation at the scene where the car had been found, and they were considering her disappearance to be that of a runaway. Despite this, they still initiated a search, which involved police officers and search dogs combing the area around the barn on foot, but nothing of value was found. A look in the house uncovered drug dealer paraphernalia and a gun. At the time of her disappearance, Brianna had been taking medication for migraines, which had been left behind in the car, along with her contact lenses, clothing, makeup and driver's license. This indicated to investigators that she'd either intended to return to the vehicle at some point or that she hadn't abandoned it of her own free will. A woman's fleece jacket was found in the field near where the Oldsmobile had been abandoned, but it apparently did not belong to the missing girl. On March 30, 2004, the Oldsmobile was processed by the Vermont State Crime Lab. While there were no signs of a struggle or that she'd met with foul play, it was later revealed that DNA had been found. Not long after, it would be concluded that Brianna's disappearance was probably the result of something happening to her against her will. Several people came forward to say they'd seen Brianna's vehicle on the night she went missing. According to one witness who drove by the barn between 11:30 p.m. and 12:30 a.m., he'd seen headlights, but hadn't seen anyone in or around the Oldsmobile, while another would state that he'd seen the turn signal flashing between midnight and 12:30 a.m. that night. Brianna's former boyfriend had been returning from a party across the border in Canada when he saw the car around 4 a.m., but, similar to the first witness, no one was seen with it. A few motorists noticed the scene the next morning, with some finding it strange enough that they actually stopped to take pictures. One reported seeing loose change, a bracelet or necklace, and a water bottle on the ground next to the vehicle. And this is the first part of Brianna Maitland's disappearance story.